Welcome back to the Mindsets podcast. This is episode 6. I'm joined here with Josh Hunt. I don't like to do massive introductions of the other person because I feel like that's unjust. Plus, I haven't seen you in a few years.
It's been years.
So, do you want to give everyone a little bit of an introduction to yourself? Start from young, and then we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure. Like Angus has said, my name's Josh. We met originally in school from year 7.
Yeah.
Year 7 because we joined in secondary school together. We're friends through, I'd say more like the second
Yeah, kind of
half
towards
of
the back
it.
end.
More like
sixth
year,
form.
year 10,
Yeah.
11. Definitely sixth form because we played sports together, and that was our friendship group at that point in time.
Yeah.
Before that, I think even through school, I was quite a quiet kid.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really come out of my shell much, for reasons that we'll talk about later, for information I found out about myself when I was in sixth form. So kind of kept myself to myself, and yeah, just.
So after sixth form, what have you been up to? I haven't seen you. This is like genuinely for everyone listening. This is kind of our catch up as well.
Yeah, it is. To be honest with you, dossed around for a few years.
Yeah.
A fair few years.
Yeah. Just kind of got yourself into work, into job, and adulting.
Yeah, so I originally went back and did a second year of sixth form to retake media studies because I didn't get the grades that I wanted. Long story short, I never turned up to the exam.
Okay.
I just created friends in the year below and just started going out loads.
Oh, yeah.
Worked in various small jobs that never really amounted to anything. Struggled with drink and going out quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, eventually got into more of a career going into car sales.
Yeah.
Which ended up coming to an end back in May last year. Due to just bad mental health battles. Went into a rehabilitation centre, and then now have a business running with my brother, which was started up in May, I think.
Oh, sweet.
At May time, so.
Okay, so wow. Okay, there's going to be a lot to cover here. This is
Yeah.
exciting. Right, so let's go back then. So you were a quiet kid in school.
Yeah.
But you said that you got some news later on.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. But at the time, being the quiet kid, did you have any idea what was going on?
No.
Why you were being quiet? Like,
No.
Was there any element of you that didn't want to, or you felt like you were restricted? Did you struggle with that?
I think it's definitely more an anxiety thing. I mean, I may have come out of my shell to certain people, but I'd never really be a leader in a group as such. I'd always just kind of sat in the back and just go with the flow of what goes on due to massive anxieties and not knowing how I felt in myself.
Mm-hmm.
That would be with friendship groups. If I'm meeting new people, I'm extremely socially awkward.
Right.
Even in classes, I'd never put my hand up to answer a question. I'd always just if I was to answer anything, I'd be picked on to answer it.
Right.
And I'd know the answer.
Was it fear of stumbling on your own words, or like embarrassment of other people listening, or if you got it wrong, or was it just that you just didn't like publicly speaking?
I think it's not so much that I get it wrong, because most of the time I got it right, but I think it's just the fear of speaking out
right
publicly,
okay.
or in front of people as such, which now I do quite a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously with some of the talks that I do, but at that point in time, when you're trying to figure out what was going on with you and why you couldn't do it, and looking at teacher reports of me when I was younger as well, no one said that all of the teachers would say the same thing. First report, quiet kid.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really speak up much. By the time the second report came round about, what was it, like January, February time maybe? Or like half the way through the year, they would say, Josh has come out of his shell, so-and-so, and they'd get a bit more praise on it from that, and my scores would be high because I was interacting more, but it didn't really reflect how I was.
Outside of school, did you find that you were more comfortable, or you did come out of your shell more in different areas? And was it the school atmosphere that you kind of held back in?
No, football, I came out of my shell.
Yeah.
Because I could be who I wanted to be on a pitch.
Okay.
That was it.
Did you find that because obviously people, when they do sport, have that sort of sport high for a little bit afterwards? Did you find that it carried over into life after sport, or was it just really when you're on that pitch you could feel free?
I only really when I'm on the pitch.
Okay.
I didn't really come in after, because I'd go on the pitch, run around, and you're taught from a young age, aren't you? Shout. Especially playing football,
Yeah,
shout.
like communicate, put your name on it.
Don't stop talking, don't shut up.
Yeah.
And so kind of led from that, and then by the time I came off, I was so mentally drained from what I'd just done for an hour.
Especially if you're not used to it.
Yeah, exactly. That it didn't really carry on. And even outside of football, I spent most of the time probably in my room,
Mm-hmm.
or out at a skate park, but even that was kind of just a social thing in itself, and I wouldn't really be talking much down there. That's the way that I look back at it. Some people may have something different to say about it because they may have a different memory.
Sure.
But all of that, I still feel like I was putting on a front to be someone that I wasn't, and not feel noticed, but be like, I am still here.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's move more down the timeline towards you were getting this news. What made you feel like you needed to go and talk to someone?
Curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So I was sat in a business studies lesson with Mr. Edwards, and I'd do something where I'd zone out. I wouldn't pay attention. And he turned around to me and said, "What's wrong with you? Have you got ADHD or something?" I kind of sat there and I was like, there's no harm getting checked out from this.
Yeah.
So I went home, I was a bit quiet for a few days, and my mum turned around to me and eventually said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, just an off-the-cuff comment by a teacher." And obviously, when you say an off-the-cuff comment by a teacher to your parents, they want to...
Sounds really bad.
Yeah, they want to know what you said. They want to know what the teacher said. So told them, and then we went to go get myself checked out, and I score severely highly in ADD.
Right.
Which is why my ADHD was never really picked up, because I wasn't disruptive.
So what's the difference between ADD and ADHD?
ADHD is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and ADD is attention deficit disorder.
Okay.
So I don't get the hyperactivity of running around wanting to be in the middle of every conversation, and like controlling the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
The most mine will go to is flicking my fingers, twirling a ring, or shaking my leg.
Okay.
That's it. I mean, once I get talking, I could talk for Britain. But it's actually getting into that, and that's only when I'm really comfortable with someone that I get to that stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it kind of summed up how I felt. 'Cause I started to learn more about it, more about myself, and kind of the struggles that do come with it. And it's a massive part of maybe why I didn't perform well in social environments, why I didn't perform well even in a school environment. I didn't do badly, but the concentration on what I wanted to do wasn't there unless I was interested in it. So I'll go back to school and previous job. In a previous job, when I had to sit down and write emails, I didn't want to do that, so I couldn't do it. But when I'm actually out there talking to someone trying to sell a car, it's easy for me because I'm having a conversation. It's
actively
natural.
Interested in it.
I'm doing something. It's the same with school subjects. When you were doing something for one term, I may have done really well in one of the terms, but not well in the other one, because I wasn't interested in that subject. And if I didn't have an interest in it, I just zoned out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this isn't what I want.
So when they kind of obviously diagnosed you with ADD, ADHD, what was the next step from there? Was it to give you some drugs? Was it to give you some sort of person to talk to about it?
You would have hoped it would be someone to talk to about it, but it's not. They just stick you straight on drugs. Would
you have preferred just to have someone to talk to about it?
Yeah, because I think I had more going on at that point than just what was the ADD for me. But I mean, can't lie, the drugs worked.
Yeah, what drugs were they?
Ritalin, so methylphenidate.
Right.
So you take it, but the only trouble I found with them was I'd get locked into doing something for 4.5 hours. But then if I got locked into doing the thing that I didn't really want to be doing, then I'm stuck doing it for.
So when
4 hours.
I'll freely admit to this, when I was at university, I don't know if you've heard about this. People at university call them study drugs.
Yeah.
So I had a maths exam that I was definitely not prepared enough for, and so a friend had loads of modafinil.
Yeah.
Which I don't
a study
actually.
Drug.
Yeah. So I took some modafinil and I had a really good revision session. And from my own experience, and this will be interesting to hear how Ritalin works for you. It didn't necessarily make. It wasn't like the film Limitless, if you've seen that. It wasn't like it unlocked parts of my brain or anything like that. But what it felt like was I was just super focused, and I got loads of work done for the given time period. But let's say I did a set of maths questions. What I should have done in 3 hours, I did far more than I normally would have done.
100%.
But at the same time didn't really go quicker in that way. So it still felt like I'd done 3 hours, but I had been far more productive in that time. And as a result of that, I was able to get more work done in that time.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's kind of, I did find it weird that there wasn't even, I wasn't interested in touching my phone or anything like that, or getting up. Like I just sat there. I don't even think I went to the bathroom.
Probably not.
At any point. So yeah, is that the same sort of impact you felt it had for you?
No, because
Okay.
but I know that impact because people that didn't have ADD or ADHD that took it all say the same thing.
Okay.
But I can relate it to the same way as a coffee. If I have a coffee, I feel tired
Really?
because it evens my brain out.
I see.
So when I was taking the written, if I was taking one of them, which I sometimes did take more, if I was taking one of them, that would just be leveled. Maybe the dosage was wrong or anything, but that's what it did to me. It just allowed me to stay an all right level of focus, but not super focused. But then you get to take in because they changed my dosage so much, because obviously I started taking it at 17, I think, and then they went from one dosage all the way up to about 85, which is extremely high. Well, for me it was extremely high because I didn't like the feeling of it, and then so whenever I was doing that, I just kind of jump in and out of it, and I never really found some a perfect place to settle. I was either, well, that's not enough, or, well, that's too much.
Did you find that the more that you'd been taking it, for the longer you'd been taking it, you kind of built up some level of tolerance to it?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%, and then that's another difficulty in itself, because you get warned. You got warned going onto it that they can be addictive.
Right.
So that's where other troubles came in, because then I'd be like, okay, so take it, and then I go out day drinking. I'm like, I can drink so much more when I take these tablets, and I don't feel sick.
How come?
I don't know. I've got no idea on the scientific way behind it, but then I take it in an evening before I was going out.
Okay.
So I could drink a lot more than I usually would. I'd still be a lot more level-headed.
Yeah.
Rather than having a head spin and feeling sick after a few.
I see. So then you said you retook your second year of sixth form and then ended up not turning up to the exam, which I imagine probably didn't score the best in that.
No.
But
not at all.
But through that year, you ended up going out a lot more than you had been previously, or just with a different group?
A lot more than what I've been doing previously.
And was it just any time through the week, or was it just every weekend?
Monday night Guildford.
Monday night Guildford. If anyone's been to Monday night Guildford, I mean, from my own personal opinion, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. Wednesday night 5 and Lime. That used to be kind of worth it.
Yeah.
And then a Friday and Saturday, because the people that I was hanging around with then, I'm still good friends with loads of them now, but they were turning 18 at that point.
Right.
So they wanted to go out constantly, and then everyone else, my friendship group at the time, had gone off to uni, and I thought that they were going out every weekend.
Right.
And they were out, and I was like, well, if they're doing it, but they're at uni.
Yeah.
I'm meant to be
working. Yeah.
I meant to, because I never wanted to go to uni.
So did you have any other outlet at the same time, or was going out the only other thing you did, socialising or getting rid of that sort of working energy?
That was it. Because after we stopped playing at Horsley, that final year of under 18s.
Under 18s was the oldest.
Under 18s, and they're like, okay, well, you've got to go to a men's team now. And I was like, where do I find a men's team? I just don't want to go rock up and play football with a load of men.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I thought of it. I didn't think of playing with 22, 23-year-olds. And so I didn't get back into football until 6 years after that.
Right. So quite a big gap.
24, I started playing again. Do fives held occasionally, but that was my only outlet at the time, was going out, enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Worked in a hotel at that point. That actually is funny enough. So worked in there, and then you'd work till 11 at night, and then you'd have a drink with the people. The people that lived in the hotel, because they were all Canadians. So they stayed in, and they always wanted to go out and do something. So I ended up spending a lot of time with them, and they just wanted to go out all the time. I never did anything, I'd say, for myself to look after myself. It was always just, well, it looks like everyone's doing this.
Yeah.
So why aren't I going to do it?
So when you were going out, obviously, if let's say it's the third or fourth session of the week.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're thinking about this being every week, it does add up. It's not like it's a fresh week or you've had a week off. It's a lot. How thinking going into that night, were you actively excited for it, or was it like, I'm just going to go do this because this is what I do?
You go into it thinking this is what I do, but then you have 3 beers, 4 beers, and you kind of get excited for it. And then I get out there, get into the club, or wherever I was, the bar, and I'd be stood there, I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And then so I was kind of stuck in a way of that.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was damaging for myself.
And sort of the next day, did it wipe you out the next day from being productive to a degree as well?
No.
Just sort of rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat.
Would you find that you use the ADHD drugs to help you get through a hangover or anything?
Probably. The answer is probably, because I can't remember taking them back then, but I know I definitely was. So that's when I was working in the hotel. So go out, and then I come in, and then I'd be in from 10 till 3.
Mm-hmm.
I'd do a split, and then I'd go home from 3 till 6. I'd sleep.
Right.
And then I'd get back in, and then do 6 till finish, which was 11, or 6. No, 6 till close, which was 11, or 6 till finish, which is whenever the last person left the bar. Whenever there was 10 people left in the bar, where the night porter could take over. So some days I was working till 3 in the morning as well.
During this time, how was your relationship with yourself?
Awful.
Okay.
Awful. I didn't have a good relationship with myself, really. I exerted a lot of my mental energy on drinking, going out, probably sleeping with people as well.
Right. Okay. Did it get worse than drinking at any point through that phase?
Yeah. Yeah, but only in a weird way. So I had a relationship with drugs since I was 14, 15 maybe. And that's when it started. And that was just like weekend things or festivals or big parties.
Sure, yeah.
And then it started going into on a night out.
Mm-hmm.
But because you're young, you don't really have the money to do it as much back then.
Of course, yeah.
That's when I started getting into ketamine, because I was like, well, it's cheaper than anything else out there. And I can go home the next day and kind of feel like nothing's happened.
Right.
And then it's not till a few years after that did I actually start, I'd say, taking it home. So it was a social drug that went antisocial pretty quickly.
Right. So you'd just be on your own?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd never be able to, if I had it and I was out with it, I'd never be able to go home and leave it for the next day.
What was the sort of time period from sort of first getting into it and doing it on nights out to it becoming an antisocial thing? How long was that span?
Never took it home all the time that I was in school or sixth form. Maybe like 19, 20. I'd take it home occasionally and do it at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I could get away with doing it at home. Not for the fact that I wasn't being looked out for, but the nature of the drug meant you wouldn't really know, and I'd fall asleep in like half an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of knock yourself out.
Exactly. And then, but I'd still be doing it most of the days I was out on that year off as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that would be, I was taking coke then.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a mix of everything. If I was going out in town, I wouldn't take coke. I'd just take ketamine.
Mm-hmm.
Then if I was at a party or something, then that's when it was coke, and that never really came home with me.
Yeah.
It was only really because I get caught.
Right.
Because obviously, came downstairs and Mum saw me. I had like dinner plates and
Yeah.
sweating profusely, clenched jaw. She'd be like, "You've taken something."
Mm-hmm.
Ketamine could kind of get away with it.
Yeah.
Or I looked back at it and thought I could kind of get away with it.
But you probably weren't.
Oh, no chance.
Yeah.
No chance. Lazy eye, everything,
Mm-hmm.
slurring words. But if I'd been out drinking, then it looked like I'd just come home extremely drunk.
Yeah, of course.
Until they realised that I wasn't going out drinking at all.
Yeah.
And I was just staying at home all day. And they were like, well, there's not 10 beer cans by the side of your bed. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
It's got to be something else.
Yeah. And that's when the lies come in. I'm like, no,
Okay.
no, I haven't.
So you started attempting to cover track. I mean, you just sort of admitted that you were lying to yourself and thinking that you were getting away with it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Did you find that those lies just then passed on to the people that you...
Everyone. I'd lie about what I had for dinner. Because I wasn't eating. Used to like not eat for 2.5 days.
Okay.
And so Mum would come home and be like, well, what have you eaten today? I was like, I've eaten a pizza.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, you haven't. The pizza's still in the fridge, in the freezer, sorry. And I was like, no, I went down the shop and bought one. She's like, where's the box? I'm like, I left it in the bin down the road. She's like,
yeah.
Do you want me to go check down the road? I was like, you can if you want. I'll just send her on a walk down the road.
Yeah.
But pizza box in there.
Like now hearing this and seeing the way that you're talking about it, you're sort of talking about it as if it's ridiculous and it is preposterous to do some of those
mental.
lies. But at the
It's
time...
mental. I thought I was getting away with it.
Yeah.
And in my head, I believed I was getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And only since I've taken a step back and looked at it, like, luckily, I put my parents through a lot, but like, luckily, me and her can look back on it, especially me and my mum. I don't really like look back and laugh on it with my dad as much because my mum was the person that dealt with most of it, like the brunt of it. We look back on it and laugh. So it's nice to be able to look back on it. And
so how long did that kind of spiral downwards before something happened? Or what happened?
COVID happened. I'd take it home occasionally. And then I got into a relationship. One thing led to another. Relationship was rocky. And I won't go into that too much because I've got a court case.
That's fine.
But relationship was a bit rocky. And then I ended up having a kid. And scenario was, okay, well, COVID's coming. You can either live with us and see your kid, or you don't live with us and you won't see your kid. So I moved in with them for 3 months. And then moved back out. And then I wasn't allowed to see him. One thing led to another. Wasn't allowed to see him. So that's when it really started to spiral. Because I'd always be able to keep myself clean if I was seeing Dexter. Like, even like a week and a half beforehand, I wouldn't take anything. But then we'd get to the night before and be like, I don't want you to see him.
Okay.
And then one thing led to another.
I imagine that's quite difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and then just spiraled down from that. And then that's when it became like every day, and we didn't talk for X amount of months because I didn't want to talk to her, she didn't want to talk to me, and we couldn't come to an agreement over Dexter.
So that was going on while lockdown was happening as well?
Yeah.
So you weren't able to get out of the house anyway, even if you wanted to?
No,
really?
I was stuck.
Yeah.
I was stuck. And then that's when it really started to take off, and then I went from doing it at home to doing like 7 grams a day. Spending a fortune.
I was going to say, that's got to dent the pocket, but also the impact of that on your system. Did you ever, I mean, obviously when there's drugs involved, you usually have a come down.
Yeah, I never came down.
Never came down. Yeah.
I never came down. Like, if you walked into my room, you'd look, it was awful.
Did you ever end up having to go to hospital for any reason?
Nah, paramedics called me 3 or 4 times to see if I was alive.
Yeah.
Mum would check my pulse every morning because she had this fear that she was gonna wake up and I was gonna be dead. Nearly lost my bladder.
Really?
Yeah, because ketamine damages the bladder. That's what it attacks. And so it begins as if you've got a urine infection, whereas you need to go to the toilet 40 times a day, 45 times a day, and you're just urinating razor blades.
Yeah.
You always need the toilet, but you can't go. And so I was like, I've just got a urine infection. I went to the doctors, obviously, did a urine sample, sent it off. There's no problems.
Right.
Did 7, 8 of them. No problems in any of them.
Wow.
And then so that's when the doctors pretty much turned around to me and said, well, with the nature of the drug, you could potentially lose your bladder. And I was in such a way that turned around and was like, well, if I lose my bladder, I'm not going to be in this pain, am I? It wasn't a thing in my head of like...
Okay. It's kind of like a good thing.
Yeah. It's not like you need to stop. It's, okay, well, if I do it, I just carry on. I'll have a bag. I'm not going to... It's not going to hurt to go to the toilet in a bag. So I was like, I can just literally carry on doing what I'm doing. Because I wasn't getting anywhere.
Yeah. So it didn't seem like from that point that lesson was learned.
No, no chance.
Was there a point blank moment that you suddenly, it was like a light switch had gone and you're like, what's going on? Or was it a gradual process of little things?
A gradual process of big things.
Okay.
Big things. Ruined Christmas. I went downstairs and I used to go into like psychosis where I wouldn't remember anything that's happening. I wouldn't know my name. I wouldn't know anything.
It kind of makes sense if you're high all the time.
Exactly. And then went downstairs and I went to go downstairs at like 4 a.m. again. Mum's like, don't go down there. I was like, what happened? And then she was like, you've done something, but just go to bed, we'll sort it. I went into the room, I snapped the Christmas tree, all the glass baubles are smashed. Like 2-3 days before Christmas. And then used to try and fight my dad. Because I didn't know he was my... It's going to sound weird, but I didn't know he was my dad.
Right.
Because I was... mentally ruined. Tried to fight him a couple of times. This is going to sound bad, but I used to get out behind the wheel of a car and half hope that I never came back. But I'd always come around on my driveway.
So was that only in psychosis, or was there genuine feelings of wanting to not be around anymore?
It was a mix of both. So there were genuine feelings of not wanting to be around anymore, and that's what I struggled with. Whether it's because I was in psychosis or not, I'm still trying to figure that one out. But there'd been talks I'd had with Mum, and I've lost a fair few people I know to suicides, and everyone's got their own opinion on them, but I've seen the damage that it causes to families. Yeah. And I never wanted to cause that damage to my family. It's like, okay, I can't do that to my mum. I can't do that to both my brothers. I can't do it to my dad. I've got a kid. I can't just see my kid in the world without me in it. So there were so many factors in it that, in my head, I was too selfish to do it by myself. But if it happened behind the wheel of a car when I was high, in my head I was like, okay, it's not really killing myself. I just got into a bad. But that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. I look back at it now, and in my head I was like, okay, well, I haven't gone out anywhere because I'm still sat in the driveway. And then Mum had Life 360 on and showed me where I'd been driving. But I don't remember any of it.
Right. And then, see, all of this is going on, and it's nice to have you here on the sofa with me today and able to actually talk about it the way you are. I really do appreciate it. So, what started changing?
I half agreed to go to rehab to begin with to make my mum happy. That's why I originally agreed to go.
What kind of rehab was it? Was it sort of you had to not like I don't know what they'd call it.
Okay.
Not boarding school isn't the right thing, but was it like a move out into a rehab thing, or was it just go and have discussions?
No, it was so I did have a counsellor. I still got a counsellor, Nancy, for 2 years. And I went through the process, and I went through the motions of pretending I was doing alright in counselling.
Yeah, which is pretty normal.
Yeah, it's normal until you actually want to speak about something, then you won't do it. You'll be like, oh, I'm fine. And she's looking at me, she knows that I'm not fine. And then agreed to go to rehab for Mum. And went to look at one place, and they said, okay, well, we don't have anything to get into till the end of August. And I said, okay, that's fine, I'll come back then. Okay. That place was 6 months. It was run by Samaritans, so I would have moved in there for that amount of time, and then you could have chosen to do 3 months when you come out in like a halfway house, and then 3 months if you wanted to rehabilitate into Reading, essentially. And then as I'm looking more and more into it, I'm like, this isn't the place for me. And then because I found myself looking into it, I was like, well, I must want to do it, so something must be changing. I'm not trying to find out or like trying to get out of reasons to go, because I'm looking at other rehab centres. I found one called Primrose Lodge over in Walpolston. Had a look at it. It's 28 days instead of 6 months. Looked at it, and it was more based on the science side of the addictions, rather than the Samaritan side of the addictions. And both of them run on 12 steps, but the other one seemed to be more science based, and it had good reviews, so I went in there instead. And that was a difficult conversation to have with Mum and Dad. We went in there, I don't want to go to that rehab. And they were like, what? And kind of saw their like faces drop, and I was like, no, I want to go to a different one. And at that point, that was a turning point that was like, okay, well, he must actually want to go.
You're verbalizing you are willing to go.
I just didn't want to go somewhere I didn't want to go.
Yeah, because I mean, at the same time, you think about in terms of efficiency, if you don't want to be somewhere, then you will do everything in your power to not put the effort in to be there. So if you can find some sort of middle ground, or even a place that you would rather be, then you're actually going to put your effort into the rehab that they do.
Yeah, and I mean, I went in September last year, and for me, I think I went at the right time. I think anything before that, I mean, I still came out and did it after rehab, and that's a different story in itself. But actually going in there and spending time in there and kind of being sober itself, not being around anything, was extremely refreshing. And the people that I met in there are incredible. I've never sat around. I used to get up at 6 in the morning, go to bed at 11 at night. You'd have stuff through the day. So 6 till 8 would be like breakfast, chill out time. And then 8 till 8:30 would be meditation or reading from a book. And then you'd have 15-minute break. And then for an hour and 45, you'd have conversations between you all. Just how you're feeling today, and then a reflection on that. So if someone says they're feeling a certain way, then you can reflect on it and say how you feel. And then that would take you up to lunchtime. And then in the afternoons, you'd have a mix of yoga, like sound bath meditation, which is like I've forgotten where it is, but you get like gongs and Himalayan bowls out, and it's just vibration therapy, sound vibration therapy. You like art therapy. You go on a walk on one of the days, and I've forgotten what we did on a Friday. And then you'd also, that's when you do course work, so step work. So you go and work through the steps there as well.
What are the steps?
If you ask me to label off the top of my head, I've got no idea.
Okay, but kind of what do they
Steps
do?
1 to 12 is just essentially you acknowledging where your problems are.
Right.
There's a book, Russell Brand did a book, and it's probably personally one of the only things I like about him. But it's his version of recovery. The step 1 is, are you fucked? Step 2 is, are you going to unfuck yourself? Step 2 is, how are you going to unfuck yourself? That's the simplest way to put it.
Okay.
And so just go in there, and you have to acknowledge that you've got a problem. And that's hard enough in itself. Set in front of...
I can imagine that's very emotional as well. Kind of getting to that point where you admit that there is something wrong after you've been
100%.
denying it for so long.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And when I first went in there, there was a guy called Felix, and he'd been in there... 28 days was the longest stint they did, and he'd been in there a bit longer than that. But the one thing I remember about him is he came up to me within the first 5 minutes and spoke to me, and just... that was it. Like, just come and speak to you, take you over to meet everyone. And that stuck with me through the whole process. It's like, well, these people don't know me, but they're so willing to be there and help me. And he was just another kid like me.
Same age sort of thing?
Yeah, a few years younger.
Oh, really?
A few years younger than me.
Oh.
So yeah, he's yeah, and then you just get brought into the group from there, and then before you know it, you're sat in a room with 8, 9 people you don't know talking about your problems. And I thought my problems were solely me. So I thought I did things that no one else did, and then I'm sat there and I'm listening. I'm like, oh, I do that. And before you know it, you've got something in common with everyone in that room, and that isn't just being common of just being an addict. It's stuff that you do in the lives that you lived and the stuff that you've been through to get to where you're currently sat.
Yeah.
That was refreshing in itself, being there, and then that was kind of a turnaround for me. One, the fact that I wanted to go, and 2, for the fact that I actually enjoyed my time in there. As much as you can enjoy your time in a rehab centre.
Of course, yeah.
Because obviously it is a lot of hard work, mentally.
So did you do your 28-day stint straight away?
Yeah.
Did the full 28 days?
Did a full 28 days. Went in. Luckily, September was quite sunny last year. So I got to sit in the garden for most of it.
Nice.
Had a gym in there. It wasn't much of a gym. I had a cable machine that barely worked. And a rowing machine and a bike. Because you couldn't have weights just in case you got into an argument with someone.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And was that part of the program then? Like, because you said about walking and there's that sort of thing, but then there's obviously a lot of the meditation and that sort of thing. I think is very good for your mind. And yeah. Did they introduce all walks of life kind of back into the program, or was it just
apart from the gym, the gym was just optional. The walk was optional. If you didn't want to go on a walk, it was fine. You only went to a church and you only went to Merestwood Farm. Which
of the activities that you kind of did have to do did you kind of gravitate more towards helping you?
Them sound baths.
Really?
Absolutely incredible. If you haven't had one, go have one.
Yeah.
Literally lying there, it just play. Each bowl's got a different vibration, and you're lying in a room. You get a blanket and a pillow, and the rule is you just can't fall asleep. So you shut your eyes, you do stretches, and then shut your eyes, and then she plays this gong and rubs these bowls.
It does sound really nice.
It's the easiest way to put it. And then you're lying there, and your mind just shuts off, and then all you hear is like vibrations bouncing off the walls. And
that's really cool.
Then I got woken up. Not woken up, but kind of like you get your foot tapped and come back round. I'm like, what, is it over already? It's been an hour.
Wow.
Been an hour. And I came out of it and I was like, that's incredible. So yeah, I had 4 of them. I only got one of them a week. Would have paid for another one, to be fair. But that was a good part of it. The art therapy was all right. Like I understood the principle of it.
Yeah.
Just putting drawings and pictures down on scenarios essentially. So the first one was your life a year from now if you carry on doing what you're doing. Your life a year from now if you stop doing what you're doing, and your life X amount of time from now. So that's the kind of stuff that it was based on.
Okay. So that's very self-internal and reflective.
Yes, which the whole process is. But I mean, when you're doing, because you've got different kinds of learning. If you're doing it verbally and you're talking in a group, it's good for kind of people that learn through speech or through listening. The art ones, if you learn through like visualization and so forth, and doing something tangible. And so it managed to bring everyone in and some people did get on with the art therapy, but I think they were just stubborn.
Okay.
Stubborn and didn't want to try it. And then the meditation as well. I used to do that in the mornings, but the trouble of doing it in the mornings, you used to fall back asleep.
Yeah, I was going to say, sort of sitting there with your eyes closed, and you can fairly easily slip into a dream.
Yeah, and the meditation was difficult for me at the start. Like, because they play the music to go along with it and like the self-affirmation ones,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I was in a really bad trip. That's what my mum used to put on to try and calm me down.
Okay.
So the first few times, and bear in mind you did it most mornings in rehab, first few times in, I'm shutting my eyes. It's just bringing back bad memories of it. So learning to shut them out
Mm-hmm.
was difficult, but now it's.
Was there a process for that, or was it just an immense focus?
I think I stepped it up like 3 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I spoke
to
to them in there and said, I know you want me to do it, and I will do it, but just a gradual process building up to it and explain the reasons, and they were fine with it.
Were you still on Ritalin through this process, or did you come off that as well?
Yeah.
Came off that?
I was on Ritalin through it because I couldn't concentrate if I was doing the coursework.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I came off my antidepressants through it, and I haven't taken them since.
Nice.
So I kind of just use it as a thing to get off everything. First rehab I wanted to go to wouldn't let me take in the medication anyway, because it's can show false positive on a drug test on the meth.
Right.
But this one weren't too fussed with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was all kept in a drug cabinet. So they'd come round to me, and if I didn't want to take it that morning, and I said no, they'd be fine with it.
That's cool.
They respected what you wanted to do, and not all of the therapists in there. All of the therapists bar one were in recovery.
Really?
Yeah. So you're talking about these problems to them, and they're understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I were to talk to anyone else about the problem, she'd look at me and be like, "What'd you do that for? Like, you don't understand the level of mental that I and other people in there went through." So I used to go get a big bag of whatever I was getting, and they split it up into 8, 9, 10 different bags, and just hide it around my room. And if one got taken away, I'd have another one. I'd have another one. I'd have another one. And then even when I came out of rehab, I was finding them. And obviously, you find it in front of you, you're like, oh, even though mum cleaned out the room, there's still some.
I was going to ask so you finished rehab, I imagine after the 28 days, like you said, you were feeling refreshed.
Yeah.
But then you go back to the same room and you're finding stuff. What happens then? Are you still trying to do the same meditation process, the same sort of therapy, or?
When you're in there, you come up with a plan of when you leave. And the plan of when you leave looks very similar and very black and white to what we were doing in there, and it looks like a school timetable. Because they want to know you've got a plan for when you leave.
Yeah.
So you look at it and you're like, okay, well, Wednesday I'm going to go on a dog walk at 11. And I'm like, but what if I don't want to go on a dog walk at 11? I didn't really have time to. First 2 weeks are okay. First 3 weeks are okay. 4 weeks start kind of getting a bit difficult because it was so easy for me to slip back to the old routine. And when you're in there, you don't have a choice to not do anything, because you can't.
Yeah.
And you come out, and then things start to creep back in. So say you've got, let's say 5 things I've got to do. So say I do meditation, gratitude list, mindful activity, go to a meeting, and do a self-reflection hour or read part of a book. As soon as I don't do one of them one days, there's only 4 steps away from me using. If I drop 2 of them, it's 3 steps. And then when I've dropped all 5, I don't have anything to fall back to before. I was just like, I'll just go get it. And that was difficult to grasp as well, because I was like, why did I do it? And then I did it, and I was like, okay, well, no one really noticed that I did it.
Right.
So I'll do it again, and again. I wasn't using it anywhere near as much as what I was. It'd be like every few days. It'd be less amount, but only by half. I was still doing 3.5 grams a day. And then it got to 10th of January. That was the last day I did it, and I was like, I got caught. I got caught to sort out stuff with the kids, so I stopped from that point on.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
I haven't touched it since. Cheers. Means a lot.
That's very impressive from the sort of depths of what you were involved in.
Yeah.
What I kind of you sort of showed is rehab's really great, and you said, it'll only really work if you want to be there.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that has always concerned me, obviously I've had an outside perspective of things. I've had certain family members go into similar things for very different reasons. And it's it's like you said, when you're there, it's very refreshing because you're doing all of these things that not only act as a distraction, but kind of re-straighten the way your thought processes are. The problem is that you are held, there's an accountability that they take on by having the structure and having those things in place. But when you obviously step out, the reason that they want you to have a plan is to hopefully that you can hold yourself accountable to that. But there's not kind of, when you step away from those things, you said you still have a counsellor.
Yeah.
But it's difficult when you are in kind of by yourself again to hold yourself accountable. And I'm very much on the completely, this is very difficult to compare, but I'll try anyway.
Give it a shot.
With someone, so some of the people that I know that train for sport and that sort of thing, and even for those people that, you know, they get the other side of Christmas and go, oh, I'm going to start running and I'm going to run 3 times a week, and it gets to that 3rd day of the week or even the 2nd day that you're supposed to run, and it's cold, it's wet, it's miserable, and you don't do it that day because you tell yourself to do it the next day, and then you don't do it the next day, and then it comes to the 3rd run day that you should have done, and you go, well, I didn't do the 2nd day, so I'll just start again on Monday.
Exactly it.
And so you end up slipping down that way, and I can see that on a much more severe scale, that's probably what was effectively happening.
Exactly, it was the opposite. So where there is the lack of the running on one day, the lack of the running on the other, and then getting to the 3rd, it's use one day. Okay, well, I used yesterday. Like the month I've just done is gone. There's no point in saving a day, so use the next day. And before you know it, you're 3 days in.
So you tackled that purely from the fact that things got serious with, you know, your kid in the court, or was it?
No, not even that it got serious with the kid in the court. Just like I didn't want to continue doing it.
Okay.
I just didn't like it.
So how did you take back the accountability, or was it just the fact that you were suddenly like, I don't like doing this anymore? I'm not.
Something switched, and I was like, I don't want to creep around anymore. I don't want my family to go back to hating me. I actually want to get on with my life. I don't enjoy being sat around all day.
One thing that I'm now really excited to talk to you about is because you're kind of on the other side, you've decided that you don't like this thing anymore.
Yeah.
And how has it felt coming away from that? I mean, we're in October now.
October now, so it's 10 months.
What has your progression been like, again, with your relationship with yourself, but also the relationship with the people around you?
Relationship with myself, I learned to love myself a lot more. Whereas previously, I'd get told on how I was feeling a lot. Like, you shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't feel like that. Whereas I was like, okay, but I do feel like that. And learning that I am going to have bad days, but it doesn't mean my life's bad. That was a very difficult one to cope with, because if you have 3-4 bad days in a row, you're like, oh, my life's terrible. And it's hard to pick out of that rut, but it's just like, okay, well, just got to go back to basics, make sure everything's working okay. And then my relationship with myself and my relationship with everyone around me kind of pulled one another along. Because where I wouldn't spend much time with my 2 brothers, I'm now starting to spend time with them. I'm starting to play golf with them. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm enjoying what I do with them. And then the more I'm gaining, the more I've got to lose at the same time. So if I go back to it,
I see, yeah.
I'm not going to have the same relationship with my brothers that I've managed to build back up over these 10 months. I've got to be able to build up the relationship with my mum and dad again. Like, both of them could never leave the house at the same time, because there'd always have to be one person looking after me. So I took their freedom away from what they should be doing as adults. Like, if they both want to go to the shop together, I'm the one that was stopping it. Yeah. Because one person's got to be on the looking after me to make sure I either don't leave the house to go and get it, or to make sure I don't die. And so my relationship with myself, and especially my families, and I wouldn't even say everyone around me, because until I met Ellie, I didn't really. The only person I really saw quite a lot was Tom Gash. And Dylan and Amy occasionally, and
just for people listening, these are people from school.
Yeah, these are people from school, and he's a person that's always been by me. Like, and he's where I couldn't really talk to. I felt like I couldn't really talk. Where I felt like I couldn't talk to him about mental health battles, like I could just talk to him about it. And he'd come out, and we'd go down the pub and we'd go play pool down the pub. But I've ditched a lot of other people to be able to get to where I am, and that's that's difficult in itself. Having to leave behind the friends that you've made since you were 12, essentially, especially all the school friends, whereas they're all now up in London, obviously doing what they're doing, and they're enjoying what they're doing. They're going to festivals and everything, but and I know I can't do that. So I've had to steer away from everything and focus on what I can and can't do. And then that's been a massive learning curve. And for me, that was extremely difficult to grasp. So I lost a lot, kind of a bit of a relationship with myself there as well, because I felt like I couldn't do certain things, but I knew I couldn't do them at the same time. So whereas I wish I was doing that, I've now stopped wishing I was doing that, because in my head, it's not fun.
Yeah. And I think one thing that it sounds like you're doing is you're starting to replace those things with other things you didn't necessarily do before.
I went pottery painting the other week.
Pottery painting?
Yeah, it was wicked.
I love pottery painting.
It was wicked. I went to a place down in Brighton.
What did you do? A bowl or a mug or what?
I did a beaker.
A beaker?
Yeah, I did a little handleless beaker. Now, if you asked me 2 years ago,
yeah,
if you see me pottery paint, no chance.
No chance.
No chance.
Yeah, and it's just finding different activities that kind of give you some level of satisfaction. And
yeah,
because you said as well, and when we were talking about having a discussion earlier this year, you mentioned how you got back into football.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about what you're up to football, and now you said golf as well.
Yeah, so I probably play golf more than. No, I play football every week. I try and play golf a bit more in the summer. But golf for me is like a bonding thing that I can go do with both of my brothers. Whereas football, I played with Jamie. I didn't really do anything with Connor. Apart from now I work with him, so I spend nearly every day with him. But relationship with football came back because I was just fed up. I felt like I've always had a problem with my body image. Not for the fact of just like I've ever been extremely overweight, or I was more severely underweight.
Right.
But it got to a stage of a few years ago where I was bigger than I had been previously. That wasn't me saying I'm overweight at all, but I was bigger than I previously been. I looked at myself and I was like, okay, I'm not happy with it. And I was like, I don't really want to go to the gym. I was like, I don't want to start fresh in the gym. So I was like, I'll just go play football again. Started playing with them, and I tell you what, after not playing sport for 6 years, it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done is learning to not play football again. Like, that never left, but the fitness behind it was so difficult to pick back up. I remember being on a pitch like 5 minutes in, and I could barely carry on. And then you started to fall back in love with it, in the sense of I like playing it. Then went on to playing 5 and 6 aside with more school friends. And then that built my fitness up a lot better than playing 11 aside.
Okay.
It was like, because 6 aside for me, to put it fitness wise, is like an interval. It's interval training.
Yeah, definitely is.
Whereas you're doing short sprints. Whereas on 11 aside pitch, if I was playing in the middle, then it's a lot of running. Constant. But 6 aside is sprint, stop. Yeah. 40 minutes flat out, don't stop.
Plus, I think in 11 aside, as much as it is free flowing, when the ball goes out of play, if you're playing in midfield, then you can take your time getting up for the corner. While the corner gets set up, you can kind of get your breath back. But in 6 aside, it's like all go.
Yeah,
the ball doesn't go out of play.
The Elsa ball. Yeah, it goes out for all about 10 seconds, then it comes straight back in.
Exactly.
And then so that picked up my fitness, and then, like I said, I've never really been fussed with how I look body wise, because I'm just comfortable. And then I started to get back down to the weight that I wanted, and I was like, okay, well, I actually enjoy playing football, so carried on with it, and I enjoy playing 6 aside more than 11 aside, so which is why I've carried on with it. One, it's in the evenings. Like, some of our games are at 9:20. It's late, but when you're sat there and you've come back from work and you're feeling a bit lazy, knowing you've got to get up and go play football, something about that I kind of like. Like, the drive over there, half an hour over to Guildford, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then I get there and put the boots on, I'm like, okay, well, I'm here now.
Yeah.
And then that's how I sometimes end up playing 3 games. So I'll go there at 7:20, play 1 game, and then I'll play the 8 o'clock game, and then I'll play the 8:40 game.
Is that all with the same group, or are you just mixing teams?
Mixing teams. So one of them I play with the year belows. Then the other one I played with Scott Spence and his team. And then they asked me to come play. Another team asked me to come play, just be a ringer, because they only had 5 players. Yeah. And so I said, yeah. By the time I finished the 3rd game, my mates I played the 1st game with were walking out the pub.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, did you play 3? I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
But once I'm there and into it, I don't particularly want to stop doing it. I could go there and play most of them.
Yeah.
Because I like what it puts me through more mentally. Just like going on a run, because you went on one the other day.
Yeah, I went on a bit of
How was that?
a bit of a silly one. Well, it's a similar thing to what you said. So I used to run a lot as a kid. I used to do cross country at school, and I never really used to enjoy it. I used to do it. I used to not be bad at it, and that's kind of my approach. Is like, I'll do it because I'm not awful at it. But I then sort of in more recent years, I did a lot of gym stuff. It was very specific to the sport I was playing. Then I stopped playing the sport and kind of was going to the gym because it kept me sane. But at the same time, I didn't want to train like a bodybuilder because I didn't want to be a bodybuilder. It's not. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just not what I wanted to do.
Got that physique.
Yeah, and so it was like I did have issues being a taller guy. It's very difficult to not look really skinny, and so I did want to focus on that. I didn't want to look skinny. I didn't want to look lanky for my personal reasons, and so the bodybuilding split was what I was kind of doing, and then I don't know what happened. I just sort of realised that fitness wise, I was starting to be happy with how I looked, but there was some relative insecurity in knowing that if for God knows whatever reason someone picked up the phone and my car didn't work, I could run somewhere purely off maybe mental strength in getting there, but it wouldn't be fast.
Yeah.
And my cardio, realistically, I could probably lie about it and say, yeah, no, I could run that distance in this time, but there was no evidence behind it. And so I basically, I went traveling. I was unable to go to the gym that consistently. I lost a lot of weight, lost a lot of muscle, and started exploring doing different things. I was doing a lot of hikes up volcanoes. It was amazing, classic gap year bullshit.
A few years on though.
Yeah. But then I ended up doing some Muay Thai stuff out there, and it was very interesting. And coming back, it was like a fresh slate. I could fall back into the same routine I was doing beforehand, which I wasn't really enjoying, or I could approach this more hybrid style of training, which just makes me all around more healthy. And the training that I do now is I go to the gym sort of 4 times a week, maybe 5 if I'm really bored with the extra day.
Yeah.
But and then I'll run 2 days a week.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I'm moving into now, because the running gives me something different to do. It gives me still a rest from being in the gym. But what I find now, and one of the reasons I've started to like running, is that because having got back to it, but like you said with the football, it's very, very difficult. Cardio wise, when you haven't got it, it sucks.
That's what I asked.
And so it ends up, most of my run becomes a fight internally.
Mental.
Completely mental.
Yeah.
And with some of the other stuff that I've had going on in my life, around things, I've had some pretty awful news. A member of my family that's quite close that's been diagnosed with cancer. We've had issues trying to come back here and move somewhere with dodgy landlords. Everyone that's familiar with moving somewhere in London, it's not great. But there's a few other little things that have been going on, and it was just, everything was just really shit. And so I was like, do you know what? I'm going to start running, but I'm going to test myself. I'm not going to just go and do a distance. I'm going to run this, and I'm going to run it as slow as I like, and as long as I do the run, I'll feel better. And then when I got in that run, and those two sides of my brain that started talking to each other started fighting it out about trying to stop and not stopping. And so in the video that I put up on like TikTok and Instagram, it was I ran to this roundabout, and the whole pre-plan was to turn around at the roundabout and come back, and that's when I'd feel good about myself.
So you kept going.
And I got to the roundabout, and I was like, nah, this fight needs to carry on.
Yeah.
Like, I need to beat this other voice that's in there telling me to like give up and stuff. And so that's what happened. I ended up carrying on for, like nearly twice as long as I was originally meant to. And I got back, and I was absolutely fucking knackered. And the next day, I struggled to walk, like all of that. It was, but at the same time, the sort of relief mentally in that I had kind of got back to who I was in being sort of mental strength. Like I was in control. And so even now, I'm not doing the runs at that length. I want to gradually build up to maybe doing those. But now it's more about holding myself accountable. And again, when I'm in it and I'm doing it, I'm actually getting something out of it.
Yeah, correct.
Whereas when that kind of build up to it, I don't want to do this. And as soon as I make it past the top of my road, which is usually where I start running from.
So it's downhill.
I'm doing it. Well, yeah, it does help that the start's downhill, but it sucks because the end's uphill.
Yeah.
But as soon as I start moving and I'm a few paces in, then I know at least for the next 2 to 3 kilometers, no part of me is going to say, okay, you might as well stop now. after 3 and I'm approaching 5 is where everything in my body starts to go, look, this is respectable. You can stop now.
Yeah.
You can do this. And so I do miss team sport for that reason, in terms of you're doing all of that movement, but there's the distraction and there's the enjoyment of, like, you might score a goal, you might make a beautiful pass, you might have a ridiculous touch with the ball, and it gets everyone going. And then just having that sort of camaraderie of your teammates around you. And so I do think when I can find somewhere to live and settle, then even if it is running, I know loads of people do like park runs and stuff in groups. I don't know if I'd do that, but I'll explore it.
I couldn't run by myself. No, I can't run by myself because it's a mental battle for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
But my mental battle is why? Like, why am I doing this? It's not like I can't do it. It's just I'm like I come out here to do a run.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but why am I doing that run?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we used to do the training for football, we used to go there, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna go run a 5k. I'm like, whenever I've tried to run a 5k, I've given up after like 2. It's not that I can't do it. It's just I won't do it. It's different.
Yeah.
But then because you're running with a group of people, like 11 players,
Mm-hmm.
and you're talking to them, before you know it, the 5k is over. You're like,
Yeah.
well, it's not hard, is it?
Yeah.
But I don't have the mental strength for that kind of thing to go out and go on a run by myself.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now, on a football pitch, I don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna run.
Yeah.
Like you said, score a goal, or you're going to go run to stop a goal happening, and it's just constant moving. I'll probably cover this over like 2 games 6 side. I'll probably cover the same amount of distance,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where I play, that I would on a 5k.
Yeah. Because I like I said, I kind of want to get back into some sport for the enjoyment of it. But then right now, it's weird. Self-harm is completely the wrong word. Completely wrong word. Self-harm has got very, very different connotations. But if I'm going through a really shit time and I feel like my brain is telling me to do things that I shouldn't be doing, or like I'm beating myself up over the fact that I'm not doing things that I said I'd be doing,
Yeah.
I will forcibly take myself out on a run to put myself in my place. It's not so much to be like fit, it's to be like, you're like whatever side of me is telling me, oh, don't bother doing, like, I'm supposed to go on a run after this.
So mental discipline.
I was supposed to go on a run before this, and then I was like, I'll do it after the podcast. But I will do that because everything that told me not to do it this morning needs to be put in its place.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it's the discipline, because if I, a bit like when you came out of rehab, if one thing starts to slip, everything else in my life will start to slip. My commitment and my focus at work will start to slip, because I'll be less happy with who I am, purely because I didn't go on a run.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how quickly that goes down.
It's crazy how one thing can change your outlook on something. Say you miss something out of your routine, or something that you say you're going to do and you don't do it. It's crazy how that can affect your mood, your mental health, or the activity you're meant to be doing even later on in that day, because you're like, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
And that's kind of, again, a lot of the foundation behind this podcast is that everyone knows that, you know, fitness makes you feel good, gives you the serotonin, all of that, but there's a completely different side to it. And I want to talk about that, and I like talking about the positives of it. So you obviously said that you feel so much better when you're doing the sport as well. It's that escape and everything like that. And interestingly, golf for me, I played golf when I was younger.
Yeah.
And through COVID, golf was one of the only things that you could really do.
Correct.
And so getting out and about, there's a few things I love about it. Usually every golf course has got the worst signal, and I know for like my girlfriend, and I know other mates' girlfriends usually tend to complain, I'll go out and play 18 holes and you might, if you're lucky, get one text back in 4 hours.
Yeah, a voice note.
Yeah, something like
that.
that.
Yeah, a voice note occasionally.
Yeah, or like she'll hate it because the only text she'll get sometimes is like, I made a birdie, and I won't say anything else. I won't have replied to any messages. But for that reason, I'm not on my phone, and if I'm playing with mates, it's just an opportunity to share things, and those conversations on the golf courses are some of the most ridiculous conversations I've had. But at the same time, there's some of them are the most like deep conversations I've had.
It's a weird one. It is a weird one, because one minute you'll be talking about something that's not relevant to anything at all, and just having a laugh and a joke, and before you know it, I can't say what I was talking about, but I was talking to someone and he just let everything out to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how have we come about this? And
yeah.
then you start to talk about it, and before you know it, you've spoken about it over, I don't know, let's say 3-4 holes, and you've been talking about it half an hour.
Yeah. And one thing that's really interesting, which I've only really just thought of, is neither of us on the PGA Tour. So let's just be honest, we're both probably not very good at golf. And with that, you'll go into a golf round thinking, you know, you are good at golf, and it puts you in your place. And dealing with that in itself is a challenge. But then when you are playing with other people, you also have to pick your other friends up, because there'll be times where your friends spiral through a few holes of like losing golf balls,
100%,
maybe snapping the occasional club or throwing one at least.
Yeah.
And trying to help them out of that little hole. And there's so much that goes on that golf course, and as soon as you shake hands on the 18th green, that's it.
Yeah,
it's done.
that's it.
It's all locked away, and you're in one of the most beautiful places around. And if you time it with a sunset as well, it's
the Clarendon one on the sunset's nice.
Yeah, you're looking over at London, that sort of thing. The views are really nice.
Yeah, Epsom Downs one's nice on the sunset as well. But golf is one of the most humbling things.
Yeah, it really is.
Because you'll hit a shot, and the next one will just go 4 foot, and you're like, I thought I was getting good at this. And then it's the same most holes. Like you said, you go on a bit of a spiral. I played a course with, I played a course with my brother. We had to leave after 9 because he got so angry at it.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, just go in the clubhouse."
I used to play with a couple of friends at school, and this was when I'm going to blame it on PB. I could not handle not being good some days. Like, I would throw clubs. I would actively shout at him because neither of us could play good at the same time. One of us would be playing great, and the other one would be playing so bad. And as a result of that, if you were the one playing great, there was some kind of satisfaction about it. You would kind of take the piss out of the other person, which just sent them down. But then it would suddenly flip, and it would be the worst thing. And so I remember there'd be times where we'd be like aiming to play 18, and we'd just walk off at 12.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah, it flips on a hole. Yeah. So you can have a good 6 holes, and before you know it, you've had a bad 6 holes, and he's had a good 6. And you're sat there, you're like, oh.
And this might sound completely over-spiritualized, but the thing that I do find with sport is sometimes it can be a complete metaphor for life. Because like with things like that, you could have a series of good holes or good days in life, and then suddenly one shit thing can happen. And you do, like you said earlier, if I have one shit hole, I'll be like, oh, I'm actually quite shit at golf.
Yeah. This round's ruined. If I have a series of them, I'm like, I want to give up. Yeah.
And it's kind of, I feel like it must be doing something to your brain and getting through that.
I reckon so, because then you get to like, I don't know, the 15th, there's a par 3, and you stick it. I'm not good, so stick it 15 yards out.
Yeah. But
to you, that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you've had a bad 6 holes leading up to that, and you get to that stage, you're like, oh, it is going to get better.
And one thing as well is that you tend to remember the good bits from golf. I mean, unless there's a really hilarious bad bit, you tend to remember the best bits. And I think that's also another thing that's really important is in life. A lot of the time, people focus on the negative side of things. And
most of the time,
if you can focus on how far you've come in something, and especially you where you've got to now, focusing on sort of those relationships that you've now built up, the fact that you've given your parents back some freedom, and you've now got into a job that, by the sounds of it, you're actively really enjoying doing. Yeah. Is totally different, and focusing on that in comparison to some of the history is really important. Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for the interruption. Josh and I are about to discuss some really good advice on mental health and what you can do to replenish your mental health. Before we do that, I feel it would only be right to mention Movember, seeing as this episode is being released in the month of November. Movember, if you're not aware, is a cause that supports men's mental health, prostate cancer and testicular cancer. Every year in the UK, more than 4,300 men take their own life as a result of poor mental health. You can support the fund by either donating to someone that is already currently involved in Movember. You yourself can also raise funds by growing out a dirty moustache on your upper lip, or you can actually just be active and set active goals, achieve them, and ask people to sponsor you in the process. If you'd like to know more, please check it out on the movember.co.uk website. Thank you very much. And back over to myself and Josh to discuss further advice on mental health.
Not all of, because obviously money is a problem, but most of my problems can be solved by just talking it through with someone. I never did it previously. I don't think, unfortunately, as guys, we never got taught to do it. Yeah. Like, when I used to speak to people and be like, oh, can I have a chat? They'd be like, yeah, come down the pub and have a pint. Or I'm having a bad day. Come down the pub, have a pint, it'll fix it. That's not it. If someone asks to talk to you, just hear them out for a bit. I'm very fortunate enough to be in a relationship now where I can talk to Ellie and she'll either sit there and come back with solutions to my problems, or sometimes she'll turn around and say, do you want me to just listen to you and hear
that,
you out?
That's a very important thing sometimes.
And
you
that's
have to gauge
that's
if it's
massive.
just I'm just letting you offload, or do you actually want to tell back?
And that's massive. And being able to have that question put forward to you, it's like, well, maybe I just need to let it out. So it's just talk. If someone wants to let something out to you, let them do it. It's the easiest. It takes no weight off your back doing it. Just hear them out, because that might be the end of it.
Have you got a way that you, if you're speaking to someone that isn't Ellie, let's say, have you got a way that you ask? Because I know that some people might be really difficult, might find a lot of challenges in actually putting together the right way to ask someone.
I feel like if you're out and about, it's going to be harder to do, but it's still possible, because I do it with Tom. I do it with our school friend. When he asks, it's going to sound so simple, but when he asks me, saying, "How are you?" I'm just truthful.
Yeah.
I'm just truthful behind it. I'm just like, no, I'm not good today.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling the best today. And then go into why I'm not feeling the best. Kind of forced upon him. He's not forced to listen, but like, he may not want to give advice, but I mean, if it's something you feel is quite serious, there is help out there that you can go and get. And speak to a professional on that part. Yeah. It's probably the only thing to do. And if you've got the right friends around you, they'll always listen.
I think that's really important. Is, you know, if you're friends with someone and you're hanging out with someone, chances are that person has also chosen to be there with you, and they wouldn't have done that if they wouldn't happily at least listen to you.
Exactly.
Like, sometimes all you do need, like you said, is just someone to sit there and listen. You don't necessarily, and getting that out of you can be the first step in the next process.
And once that step's done, you can always go back and revisit that step with the same person.
Yeah.
It's getting over the first hurdle of talking to someone, and then 9 times out of 10, that person's going to check in on you again.
Yeah. And like you said, it's absolutely okay. I've had it with a couple of friends before that have literally said to me, "I don't want your help. I don't want you to talk to anyone else about this. I just need you to listen."
Yeah.
And as a friend, if someone says that to me, boundaries set, no problem.
It's done.
What I don't want to do is then, and from my understanding from that, I'm not going to try and help you out with unsolicited advice or anything like that. I will just listen to you, and if you ask for help, I will help. If you don't, I'm just set as it is.
Yeah.
That's okay. And I think that's extremely important. And obviously, like you said, guys, we generally there's not a lot of history in sharing, and I think that is changing. But even for some girls out there, it can be difficult as well. And I feel like girls there's this sort of stereotype of girls find it easier to share with each other. They can be a lot more invested in each other's lives, but that's not always true.
No.
And guys may also have some sort of aversion to asking a girl to just sit and listen, but quite often having a very different mentality, listen to what you've got going on, can be incredibly beneficial.
Correct. And I mean, my friends from when I was younger, I'd always have a better conversation about what's going on with me, especially at the time I was going through everything with Dexter not being able to see him. The person I spoke to then was a friend from school. It was a girl, because I had a better conversation with her, and she was more understanding of the whole situation than anyone else I could have spoken to. Because my friends at the time couldn't do that for me.
Yeah.
And that's not me saying that they're not there for me, but they couldn't give me the response that I needed, which wasn't come up upon.
Yeah. I think one thing I really want to, well, first of all, I want to say a massive thank you for you joining me and going through everything. It's huge, because it's huge to a point where both of us might not realise it right now. This could be the sort of thing that will be online, and someone might pick it up 5 years from now, and it might give them exactly what they needed to hear at that time. And I think in your position, you probably won't appreciate what you have gone through and what you're able to see in other people. And even though you know, struggles still continue, and you're going through things yourself still, the fact that you're kind of able to understand the way you feel more, and you're able to deal with it more, and you found a fantastic partner who is actually in the room, by the way. It's very difficult not to make eye contact, because we're supposed to be pretending that it's only you guys in the room. it's very, very valuable, and you have an unbelievable amount of power in what you've been through.
Thank you.
And honestly, speaking to you today has been really, really enjoyable. I love doing this. I love learning about people's different life stories and the backstory and what they're going through now and that sort of thing. And I can honestly say you are a lovely human being, and it has been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank
and
you
have
very
you
much.
join me, and share as much as you have. If anything, happens in the future, or if there's anything more you want to add at some point, then feel free to let me know, but we'll obviously stay in contact. I've also just added another person to the list of people I can play golf with,
You
is
have.
absolutely fantastic, and it's good to know that you already play Clarendon, so I
a
can
lot.
just come down and join there.
A lot.
But yeah, one thing I like to do just for a quick wrap up, is there anything or any person you want to plug? Obviously you're doing me a massive favour coming on here. Is there anything, whether it's your socials, some people like to stay private, but is there anything you want to plug? Maybe even your business?
My business works mainly off not what other people do, it's straight to contractors.
Okay.
I keep my socials private.
Yeah.
I keep it quite. I mean, one more thing. I posted a photo of you, my girlfriend, and myself, like the first time on a story the other day. It's the first time I've posted anything in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep that stuff private. But if you do want to follow me, you can tag it. And then if anyone does have any troubles or is going through something, they can feel free to message me, and I'll help them
That's massive.
in any way they can.
That's massive.
Any way I can. Sorry.
I do find as well, sometimes it's easier to talk to someone that you don't know.
Because it doesn't burden them.
Yeah, and you don't have to face that person in the future.
Correct.
If things end up coming to nothing and you've overshared with someone, then that can also be quite scary. But someone that doesn't necessarily know anything about you, is non-judgmental, has been through it before, is often easier. So I thank you for that.
That's okay.
That's huge. For anyone listening, whether this is the first one or not, there's other episodes that you can go ahead and listen to. More content coming out on Instagram, TikTok, stuff like that, related to both mental health and physical health. So feel free to follow those. It's at mindsets_podcast. And yeah, feel free to subscribe to the Spotify and all the other streaming sites. Obviously on YouTube as well. So if you're listening to this and you think it would just be lovely to see what myself and Josh look like as we talk, I'm obviously not really well dressed for the occasion.
No, and you can watch me being awkward.
Yeah, you can watch this on YouTube. And yeah, feel free to subscribe there as well. But we'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody, and thank you very much again.
Thank you for having me.
Nice one.